Hello, everybody. This is Charlie Truitt, coming to you, recorded from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I'm coming to you today with a slideshow to present an idea for your consideration. And I think it's an idea that really has the potential to truly enhance National Seminar's efforts in selling, retaining, and expanding enterprise accounts, especially on the Star 12 side. And furthermore, do so in a way that's tremendously cost effective. So with that, let's jump in. So let's take a quick look at ROI. First off, ROI is a ubiquitous hot topic in circulation right now among training professionals and purchasers of training. They want to know what the value of the training is as far as it relates to generating better business results, and they want to be able to know how that compares to the cost of training. And this buzz about ROI has been reflected in the vast amount written on the topic in training publications. Here's some sample data that reflects this, and anecdotally, I know I've heard this topic discussed many times in our local ASTD chapter. And in fact, our chapter is looking at putting on a 2-day workshop to address this topic that might even go either the fourth quarter this year or first quarter of next year. So all this really reflects, again, the need for organizations to be able to really justify the investments they're making in training. So with that in mind, let's just discuss how National Seminars currently manages the ROI question. Now, not every client is going to ask our training consultants about ROI, but when they are asked, what they currently do is they talk around the subject. What they do instead is they pull up this savings report generated by Star 12s, and they show the impressive savings, and they are impressive savings, but this doesn't answer the question of ROI. And in fact, with a certain buyer who's really interested in being able to quantify the bottom line impact of the training, this might turn them off. So the question is, can National Seminars change this state of affairs and put into place a better response than what they have now, and do so in a cost-effective way, and capture more business as a result? And I believe the answer is an emphatic yes. Part of the reason that National Seminars cannot provide a better answer on the ROI question is that there's some real challenges with measuring ROI. ROI needs to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. It requires designing a study to determine what variables to measure, what variables to control for, what training to measure, and what measurables need to be followed up on after the training. Now, there's many third-party firms that specialize this, and they are not cheap. And this really reflects the complexity of the process. Traditional ROI studies can range anywhere from the mid-4 figures to the low 5 figures, which make them prohibitively expensive for National Seminars' purposes and impractical as far as providing an answer to the ROI question. Secondly, ROI studies work best in tightly controlled environments with a high volume of repetitive processes. They also work well with training that is more skill-oriented. This is why you see a lot of ROI studies that take place, say, like in a medical setting, or like an emergency room, or with a call center or a production line type of setting. Soft skills, while absolutely crucial to organizational success, remain very elusive when it comes to measuring them on an ROI basis. For example, an employee, they might not quit because their boss is less of a jerk as a result of a training, but how do you measure that? Designing a controlled study for that is almost impossible, which again makes answering this question extremely difficult. That being said, I think a second option exists beyond designing a traditional ROI study. And that option is looking at employee engagement. Employee engagement is essentially a business construct comprised of separate subcomponents. For example, you have commitment, you have motivation, you have effectiveness. And it's typically measured very easily using a self-assessment instrument that's numerical valued. It only takes a few minutes to complete. Engagement also right now is an extremely hot topic. There's dozens of books out on this, and there's entire issues of many publications that have been dedicated to this. Harvard Business Review did an issue on this. T&D and Chief Learning Officer magazines both did issues on this in recent months. In fact, many larger organizations will even report their engagement scores in their annual reports and their letter to their shareholders, showing that investors think this is important. And there's a great reason that this is a hot topic. Engagement has a significant economic impact on the business performance. At an organizational level, you look at businesses with higher engagement scores, and they're going to outperform their competitors. At an individual level, workers with higher engagement scores, they're more likely to be productive. They're more likely to put in the extra effort to make an organization and their team members succeed. They're more likely to take on extra responsibilities. They're less likely to quit. They're less likely to call in sick. And there's even less obvious examples of the positive impact of engagement on performance. For example, engaged employees are more likely to behave ethically. They're less likely to be in a workplace accident. They're even less likely to get in a wreck with the company car. Again, while it's almost impossible to quantify the exact dollar impact of all these benefits, organizations and investors realize that this is important and crucial to their success. Finally, there is a phenomenon which ties into the Star 12 program that individuals who seek out more training opportunities typically have higher engagement scores than their peers. At this point, it's assumed that's true for National Seminars as Star 12 subscribers, although I do not know that for sure, but that is assumed to be true, and that assumption is really critical to this proposal's success. So with that in mind, we'll jump to the next slide and we'll take a look at how National Seminars can use engagement data to address the ROI question and expand its enterprise sales. So let's take a look now at how National Seminars could possibly implement this and how this might work for our organization. I'm just going to apologize up front because this is where I get really excited. So just imagine if National Seminars had an engagement instrument where they could capture the engagement data from their Star 12 users. Well, gosh, then they could take that data and they could compare it to the usage data, how much training those individuals were consuming. And boy, we would come up with some really interesting data at a global level, looking at an industry level, at a company level, at a work group level, at the individual level, of course, and then even looking at the content. And then we could also look at the individual components of engagement, such as motivation, such as effectiveness, and such as commitment. And this would allow you to have some really incredible conversations with your client if you're a training consultant. Because you could go to your client and you could look at the global level, or you could look at a prospect and say, I just want you to know, Mr. Prospect, that here's the results of our training, that we find that individuals that use this product, and they take about so many sessions on Star 12, their engagement scores go up 30% over the course of a year. Or we could compare them to the industry. Well, Mr. Prospect, we've worked with other clients in your industry, and we've seen their engagement scores go up from an average of a 3.7 to a 4.2. And again, at a company level, when it comes time for renewal or for expansion of an existing subscription base, they can have a very similar conversation. Now, looking at a work group level, I think this is where it gets very fascinating, and actually there's the opportunity to build an additional premium product for this, because you could provide a manager reports of the engagement levels of the individuals in their work group. And hopefully that manager is taking our training on how to be a better manager. And so they're understanding the levers that they can pull to increase engagement levels as a result of our training. And since they have transparency, it kind of gamifies their performance as a manager, gets them more invested. And I think that's something that potentially you could provide as a premium product. Then looking at the content level, we could actually advise our customers on which content and which subtopics are really going to move the needle on engagement. And that goes to the next point, which is looking at the individual components of engagement, which again, motivation, commitment, effectiveness. And we can say, gosh, Mr. Customer, I saw this quarter your motivation levels were a little bit lower. You know, we found that groups that we work with that took these titles, they really saw their motivation levels go up. In fact, they went up an average of 43%. Can I help you set up individual development plans for those? So you really have, with this data, some amazing conversations between the training consultants and their clients. And again, I think it's obvious from this, the value that they're bringing with that data, the depth of the conversation that they have, that they're approaching this ROI topic head on, and they're seeing this ROI conversation now as an opportunity to add value instead of, you know, maybe run from it. Although I'm not saying they should abandon the savings report, because it's a very impressive report, but this just gives them another arrow in their quiver to really, again, land more sales, expand existing sales, and retain existing clients. A sample implementation period, and this is based on my own reflection and also based on working with a data consultant up here in Milwaukee who I've gotten to know, who actually does engagement data analyses for organizations in the Milwaukee area. So again, this is purely hypothetical and not all-inclusive, but it shows a potential timeline for creating this tool and rolling it out, and it seems very likely that and probable and feasible to have a workable tool going into the first quarter of 2014 that I think could really wow the prospects and the clients. Again, provide more insight into national seminars for our own purposes on what products are real winners, really moving the needle on engagement, and help maybe advise us going forward on product development and new premium product offerings. So, but first off, before I guess we jump into any of this, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What I'd love to hear is, do you see value in this of this presentation? What would you change, or are there other ways you might like to explore this question? So drop me a line and let me know what you think. All the best. This is Charlie Truitt signing out.